the former president, Donald Trump, had a lot to say tonight. Many of the things he said, of course, were abjectly false, a torrent of falsehoods even from the get-go. CNN's Sara Murray joins us now. Her job tonight is fact-checking. Sara, I'm not going to ask you to fact-check everything he said that was false because we only have a couple more hours. But what strikes you?
Well, look, I think one of the things off of the top was that we heard former President Trump again say the election was rigged and talk about ballot stuffing. And look, the reality is the election was not rigged. Biden won by more than 7 million votes. And that ballot stuffing claim, that was also bogus. Here is Trump's false claim on this tonight.
A lot of the people in this audience, and maybe a couple that don't, but most people understand what happened. That was a rigged election, and it's a shame that we had to go through it.
Can you publicly acknowledge that you did lose the 2020 election?
Let me just go on. If you look at True the Vote, they found millions of votes on camera, on government cameras, where they were stuffing ballot boxes. So with all of that, I think it's a shame that what happened. I think it's a very sad thing for our country.
Now, there is just no basis for this claim. It is a lie. We have heard Trump claim before that there was ballot stuffing by election workers in Georgia. It has been debunked, including by Republican election officials in Georgia. There is no sign any illegality like this occurred on a large scale, and multiple former Trump officials, including Trump's own former Attorney General Bill Barr, have said there was not sufficient fraud to change the outcome of the 2020 election, Jake.
Yeah, and that True the Vote group is a group of unserious right-wing activists. It is not some sort of objective election board. It's amazing to hear them cited as some sort of source. Trump also claimed he offered to send troops to the Capitol on January 6th, but House Speaker Nancy Pelosi turned him down. I don't think that's true. Sara?
No, not the case. I mean, Trump has tried to blame former House Speaker Nancy Pelosi for the violence on January 6th. He's falsely claimed he ordered the National Guard to the Capitol. So here's Trump's attempt to rewrite history tonight.
Chris Miller wrote a book, and he's a fantastic guy, and he was ready to go. They turned him down. If you look, the mayor of Washington, D.C., lovely lady, she said, we don't want it. We don't like the look. Nancy Pelosi said, oh, we don't like the look. If they would have had I offered them 10,000 soldiers. I said, it could be 10, it could be more, but I offered them specifically 10,000 soldiers. If they would have taken 500 soldiers, you wouldn't have had the problem. They turned it down.
Here is the reality. The House Speaker is not in charge of Capitol security. That's the Capitol Police Board, which oversees the Capitol Police, and at the time of the riot would have approved requests for National Guard assistance. And here is former Acting Defense Secretary Chris Miller telling the January 6th committee that he was never given an order by Trump to have 10,000 troops ready to go to the Capitol on January 6th.
To be crystal clear, there was no direct order from President Trump to put 10,000 troops to be on the ready for January 6th. Correct?
No. Yeah, that's correct. There was no order from the president.
So, Jake, as you can see, these claims by Trump about January 6th, also false.
Sara Murray, thanks so much for that. I'm sure you're going to have more fact checks for us because there were more lies than I could count said by the former president this evening. Let's talk about one of the politically more impactful decisions of his presidency to put 3 conservatives on the Supreme Court that would ultimately overturn Roe v. Wade, and what he had to say about that tonight. Caitlin Collins was trying to get him to say whether he would sign a national abortion ban if he were reelected. He wouldn't really take a position, but here is what he said about overturning Roe v. Wade.
I consider the other side to be radical because the other side, under Roe v. Wade and other things, the other side, they're radical because they will, remember the debate with Hillary Clinton? They said, rip the baby out of the womb at the end of the 9th month. They will kill the baby in the 9th month. If you look at that crazy governor of Virginia from the former governor, where he said, no, the baby will be born, and then we'll decide essentially whether or not to execute the baby.
But, Mr. President, can we talk about what you would do if
these are the radical people.
Obviously, he would rather talk about positions that Hillary Clinton never took than his own position, which is not supported by polls. Just to be clear, the things he was saying about Democrats there were not true. Hillary Clinton did not say anything about ripping the baby out of the womb. Let's just talk about the politics of this. Overturning Roe v. Wade is unpopular with the American people. It's unpopular with the voters. He needs to win the presidency should he get the nomination. He doesn't want to talk about this. I don't know that he's found a way to talk about it.
No, that was pretty clear tonight. And understandably, there's so much to unpack in this town hall. But if he does get the nomination, which is still a big if, we're very, very early in the process here, he will have to face a Democratic president who has a White House and a campaign who looks at the 2022 midterms and believes that this is exhibit A, B, and C of why, yes, the economy is troubled, yes, that there are questions about Joe Biden, but they still believe that the abortion issue will drive voters out to the polls to vote for Joe Biden and to vote against Donald Trump. If you take all the other issues, maybe even all the other noise, and you put them aside, that is still front and center in voters' minds. And that answer, as you said, clearly, if you are the Trump campaign, needs some refining. I don't know they can refine it before the end of the primary season. Perhaps he will do it if he gets to the general.
Not even refining. I mean, he said, I did that. I did that, and that is not what Michigan, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania swing voters want.
It seemed to me that the goal tonight for Trump was to reinforce to conservative voters that he supports the overturning of Roe versus Wade. Now, he did that to a point that might have actually produced quite a number of general election ads if he makes it to the general election. But I think that's what they were trying to do, because part of the context here is that in the weeks leading up to this, some of the reporting had been that Trump's aides were saying, or Trump was saying to his aides privately, that people like Ron DeSantis had perhaps gone too far with the 6-week abortion ban. And when you saw Caitlin pushing him on the dates, would he sign a federal abortion ban? What weeks would he support for an abortion ban? He refused to answer those questions about the specifics. They wanted to double down on, I support overturning Roe versus Wade, without getting him tied down on anything concrete. That is, by the way, happening right now in the states. These are not hypothetical situations, and Trump would not give the public a clear answer about where he stands. And in that respect, from the Trump campaign, I'm sure that they viewed that as a victory in terms of what he went in wanting to do and how he executed it.
Well, the phrase that he kept using was, it gave the Dobbs decision, he called it a great victory. He claimed, of course, that he had taken credit for it, although, again, it's the Supreme Court that actually ruled, not the President of the United States.
Yeah, but he litmus tested the three picks.
He certainly did.
Yeah.
But the issue he was saying was it gave pro-lifers something to negotiate with. Now, why that is so disingenuous is, one, there were already trigger laws that were on the books that were created to be reinstated or implement new abortion-related bans should Roe v. Wade ever be overturned. Number two, of course, the negotiation, he presumes, does not happen because you have mifepristone now on really the virtual chopping block. You've got abortion bans under partisan majorities in state legislatures where there has been complaints that there's no room to negotiate on these very principles. And so this perception that the Dobbs decision, by returning to the states, somehow affords a greater opportunity to negotiate is, one, not what the Supreme Court really was thinking. Well, they may have thought about it, but they didn't actually anticipate well, but also not what's really happening on the ground. I think we can't lose sight of that.
One other thing I want to talk about is his defense of the people that were storming the Capitol. 4 Trump supporters died that day, including one that was shot by a police officer who was protecting House Speaker Nancy Pelosi. He did his job. They were bursting in. Here is what he had to say about that woman who was led to the Capitol by Donald Trump's lies.
Over 140 officers were injured that day.
And a person named Ashley Babbitt was killed.
Yes.
You know what? She was killed, and she shouldn't have been killed. And that thug that killed her, there was no reason to shoot her. At blank range, cold blank range, they shot her. And she was a good person. She was a patriot. There was no reason. And he went on television to brag about the fact that he killed her.
Okay. I mean, again, fact check. He did not go on television to brag about the fact that he killed her. He's not a thug. He's a police officer. He was completely cleared in the incident. He was protecting the House Speaker. Donald Trump, his lies and the lies of his minions, incited this crowd. They violently burst into the Capitol. And yet, here he is taking the side of the mob.
Because he believes with his voters that he has convinced his voters to believe this, and now he's going to stick with it. Again, if any of you out there watching thought maybe he will pivot, maybe he will change, he will not change. He is who he is. He wants to minimize this day. And you heard Congressman Donald saying, why do you keep asking about the 2020 election? Why do you keep asking about January 6th? We have to keep actually. If he is going to be the Republican nominee, or at least now the formidable frontrunner for the Republican nomination, they tried to steal the country. They tried to steal the country. They tried to undermine the foundation of everything. We can talk about abortion. We can talk about taxes. We can talk about infrastructure. We can talk about swimming pools in America if you want to regulate those. You can't have an America without a democracy. Nothing else matters if you take away the foundation. That day was about trying to steal the foundation.